From the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Good morning, security gang. I'm on the road again. It's great to be with all of y'all today. And funny thing is, I forgot the stand for my mic. First time it ever happened. So I'm holding my mic for today's show. So I apologize. I won't have all the hand movement that I typically do. And it feels a bit awkward because now both of my hands are kind of controlling this whole thing. So we've got a packed show for all of y'all today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let's go ahead and get the show going. Obviously traveling, and I'm on the West Coast, meaning it's really early here. So for a lot of our West Coast folks that tune in every single day, wow, humbled, and thank you. All right, without further ado, let's go ahead and get the show going. If you're going to join me for a coffee cup cheers, please join me for the ultimate coffee cup cheers, y'all. And let's go ahead and get the show going. So the Port of Seattle in the great state of Washington has been struggling with system outages over the last 3 days. This first came to light on August 24th. It affected various services. I mean, it didn't completely shut down the Port of Seattle. And the Port of Seattle is the Seattle-Tacoma Airport, as well as the maritime facilities, the Port of Seattle itself, the maritime port. So they're all kind of fall into one conglomerate. It appears to be that the part that was impacted is likely the IT systems and potentially some of the OT systems that are shared between the airport, the maritime port, and others there as well. So as of this morning, the folks over at Seattle still say that there are still some critical system outages that have been isolated, and they're working on restoring them. There's no timetable for the restoration as of yet. Despite this, some people are getting through check-in processes and checkpoints. There are some delays there, primarily if you're flying on Frontier, Spirit, Sun Country, JetBlue, or some international airlines. That's where the biggest disruption is taking place in Seattle. I mean, Seattle is a Delta hub, and so I'm assuming that Delta is really hot on their business continuity plan at this point after the CrowdStrike outage, and so it seems to not be impacting them. United Airlines, American, and some of the other major airlines, however, some of the low-cost carriers, including JetBlue, have all experienced some set of delays or cancellations due to this specific outage. As of right now, there's no proof or evidence anywhere out there that says this is a cyber attack or a ransomware attack. There's nothing online that I've seen. And again, we're recording this. It's Tuesday, August 27th. And it's 6:03, 6:04 a.m. Pacific. As of right now, nothing. So we'll keep you appraised as more information becomes available, and hopefully we'll be able to bring that to you here loud and clear. So yesterday, I talked a little bit about this, but Pavel Durov, who's the CEO and founder of Telegram, was arrested when landing in France. And in France, the laws essentially state that you can't hold someone for more than 96 hours unless you plan to charge them. So the prosecutors, understanding that they didn't want to release Durov, listed 12 charges that they are investigating that appear to stem from Durov's alleged refusal to moderate illicit content on the platform and the lack of cooperation with law enforcement. Now, check this out. This is insane. Complicity, the 12 charges. I wrote a whole thing on Substack on it yesterday as I was traveling. I was in the airport. I was reading this, and I was absolutely the amount of abuse happening from the French government here. Look, they're picking on Durov for a bunch of reasons. One, he's Russian, and right now, if you're Russian, any Russian, you're bad, right? Because of the Russia-Ukraine thing, irregardless to your stance. Every Russian is an object of the Kremlin, according to most people who want to kind of put a stop to this. All right, so there's that. Number two, it's kind of a warning shot across the bow towards every other tech CEO or ISP. Don't cooperate with the government, we'll arrest you, and we'll fabricate and put out charges, because these charges could all be taken in context against Mark Zuckerberg over at Meta, Elon Musk at X, or any ISP like T-Mobile or French Telecom or anything other, because here are some of the 12 charges, and I'll read you the most there. Complicity in webmastering an online platform in order to enable illegal transactions in organized groups. You could say that any online platform does that. Is he responsible for what users do on his platform? That's a big question, because if that's the case, then Mark Zuckerberg should be in jail for what's going on there. The CEO of TikTok or ByteDance in the US should be sitting in jail as well, because they're all complicit in some sort of illegal transactions on their organized group. The amount of fraud that happens in Facebook Marketplace alone is criminal. So there's that. Refusal to communicate at the request of competent authorities. There's nothing competent in France at all. Information or documents necessary for carrying out or operating interceptions allowed by law. He's not a French company. He's not required to comply with the French. But again, refusal to communicate. I don't want to communicate with the French. So there's that. Processing pornographic images of minors. Prove it. Distributing, and that's in complicity, right? So if you've been on any social media platform, you'll realize that pornographic images of minors is a common thing at some point today. Distributing, offering, or making available pornographic images of minors in an organized group. Again, can make that same argument for any social media platform. Go to Snapchat, see what 13-year-olds are doing out there. Complicity, acquiring, transporting, possessing, offering, or selling narcotic substance. He's complicit in narcotics. Again, happening on every single social media platform on the planet today. Offering, selling, or making available without legitimate reason equipment, tools, programs, or data designed for or adapted to get access to or damage the operation of automated data processing system. Organized fraud, criminal association with a view to committing a crime or an offense punishable by 5 or more years of imprisonment. Laundering, money laundering. And then the last three, if you're a cybersecurity practitioner, providing cryptology services aiming to ensure confidentiality without certified declaration. Providing a cryptology tool, not solely ensuring authentication or integrity monitoring without prior declaration. Importing a cryptology tool, ensuring authentication or integrity monitoring without declaration. All in all, they want a backdoor to Telegram. They can't get a backdoor to Telegram. What the French government is and the Department of Justice are saying, we are going to arrest you. We're going to lay out a whole bunch of charges against you, and we're going to beat you in a submission. I sure hope that's not the case here. Sure hope that's not the case here. Pavel Durov is an entrepreneur. He built a platform. 900 million people use it across the world. 900 million people use it to communicate for things other than everything listed on there. In fact, I get a lot of news, and some of the stories we talk about on the show come from various Telegram channels I follow internationally. Some of the stories that aren't always covered in traditional cybersecurity media sources. So all in all, I pray he beats this rap, and the French understand that in a democracy, someone's entitled to open a business, and he is not responsible for his user behavior on the platform. Period. Full stop there. So China's Volt Typhoon, for their end, are targeting a high severity vulnerability that CISA added to their must patch list over the weekend in Versa networks. This zero-day exploitation, warning that the Versa Director GUI could be hacked to plant malware on affected devices. Those who don't know what Versa Directors are, they used to manage network configuration for clients running SD-WANs, and they're heavily used by ISPs and MSPs, so they're a really attractive target for a lot of them. Versa said they're aware of this, and we'll get to kind of their full response here in just a moment. But the zero-day exploitation is now being linked, according to the team over at Black Lotus Labs, to Volt Typhoon, a Chinese government-backed hacking team that have been caught in a series of eyebrow-raising attacks against critical infrastructure targets in the U.S. The researchers pinpointed exploits dating back to at least June 12th of this year, and warning that Volt Typhoon campaign has remained highly targeted, affecting several U.S. victims in the ISP, MSP, and IT sector. So all in all, you are a target if you're there. Versa Networks, for their end, fixed the zero-day exploited in the wild. And so CVE 2024 39717 only impacted customers who didn't implement the system hardening requirements and firewall guidelines. All were available since 2017 and 2015 respectively, meaning they knew this was there. They couldn't get a patch or didn't get a patch for whatever reason. And I've sent a whole bunch of questions to Versa Network, so I hope they answer those. But 2015, 2017, they've been around. Either you did them or you didn't. If you didn't, you're likely, the Zeroday was available to you. That was the mitigation. And if you didn't, if you did, then you were fine according to Versa. So there's that. But this comes into a different types of attack that is kind of coming through. It's a grim resource. It's a new technique that's really allowing attackers to execute arbitrary code in the Microsoft Management Console. Their second trick, though, is the one where they're using kind of like DLLs, an app domain manager injection, but in a way that's kind of easier than traditional side loading. So this has been around for a while. Iran, China, a lot of the open source people, pen testers use it, but it's often not really used in malicious campaigns. However, NTT researchers are saying in a new blog post that attackers with similarities to China's APT41 have been using these techniques in combination to drop Cobalt Strike onto IT systems belonging to Taiwanese government agencies, the Filipino military, and energy organizations in Vietnam. The campaign starts with a zip file that contains a phishing email or malicious website. The zip is got a Windows certificate or PDF icon. In fact, it's a management saved console file, a type of file used to save configurations and settings within the MMC. These have really grown in popularity, and then they essentially obfuscate from there. And because they use the app domain manager ASM, they're essentially able to obfuscate their entire activity, essentially making them almost undetectable unless you're really looking for this type of activity. So I'd recommend for security operations team to really share this technique, understand this technique, get as much information from your security partners as you possibly can, because you're going to need it, and start to hunt for it in your environment. If you haven't subscribed to our Substack, jamesazar.substack.com, you can catch all the latest there, including my full thoughts on the arrest of Pavel Durov and the charges against him that we talked about just a little bit here before. Uber for their end, sorry here, I was in the middle of the story here. So the Dutch Data Protection Authority has imposed a 290 million euro fine, equivalent to $325 against Uber for alleged GDPR violations, essentially saying that they failed to follow the GDPR requirements when transferring data from the EEA, the European Economic Area, to servers in the United States without adequate safeguards as defined by Chapter 5 of the General Data Protection. The first fine against Uber was 600,000 euros back in 2018. The second was 10 million euros that was imposed just in January of this year, and that was for Uber's obscure data management practices about the handling of data from EU subjects. And now, all in all, Uber finds itself facing a fine of 290 million euros, equivalent to $325 million. Uber, for their end, called the decision flawed, an extraordinary fine, and completely unjustified. They say they're compliant with GDPR and that they plan to appeal this and hope that common sense will prevail there. The appeal process could take up to 4 years, during which the fine is suspended. ParkFly data breach. One of the popular Canadian airport parking services firm has confirmed the data breach impacting 1 million of their customers. Files were accessed when a third party accessed the ParkFly networks through an unauthorized remote VPN, according to the company. The leak took place between July 11th and July 13th of this year. It included names, email, and mail addresses, as well as aeroplane and CAA numbers, but it did not contain any sort of financial information. They wish to already know password or credit card payment information is stored on their servers, so none of that information was taken there as well. An audit by the DOJ's Office of Inspector General identified significant weaknesses in FBI's inventory management and disposal of electronic storage media containing sensitive and classified information. According to the OIG, the highlighted several weaknesses, including the FBI does not adequately track or account for electronic storage media, like internal hard drives and thumb drives, once they extract from larger devices, which increases the risks of it being stolen or lost. The FBI fails to constantly label electronic storage media with the appropriate classification levels, which could lead to mishandling or unauthorized access. They've also observed insufficient physical security at FBI facilities where media destruction occurs. This includes inadequate internal access controls, unsecured storage of media awaiting destruction, and non-functioning surveillance cameras, all of which heighten the risk of classified information being compromised. They've made 3 recommendations to the FBI: revised procedure to ensure all electronic storage media containing sensitive or classified information, including hard drives that are extracted from computers slated for destructions, accounted, tracked, timely sanitized, and destroyed. Implement controls to ensure electronic storage medias are marked with the appropriate NSI classification level markings, and strengthen the control and practices for physical security. So these are the people in charge of law enforcement. If you're wondering why cybercrime is so darn successful, there you got it, folks. There you got it, right there. And our final story of the day: infamous hacker USDoD's identity has now been identified as a 33-year-old Brazilian national by the name of Luan BG. He's from Minas Gerais in Brazil. People refer to him as Luan G, but his full name has been made public and is available on some social media platforms. As the news broke, OSINT and online security firm Predicta Lab conducted its own investigation, reaching a similar conclusion as CrowdStrike and many others who wanted to identify who this guy is. They say the hacker did a poor job at hiding his true identity, with links easily being found between his online persona used by him and personal profiles on various social media platforms. All in all, Lua G responded to this saying, "I don't plan to run. I'm not worried about it. If I face charges in Brazil, I'll try to offer them my services and get a catch me if you can type of deal from authorities there." That's it for our show this morning. Tomorrow, David Katz will be joining me on the show to talk a little bit about the FTC ruling around hashing data and what that means for practitioners. So tune in to that. That'll be that'll air during the episode tomorrow. And a lot of useful information there from David Katz, who's one of the smarter cybersecurity legal minds in our industry. So there's that there. Thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure to follow, subscribe, comment, like, and let me know your thoughts on some of these stories, including Pavel Durov's attack. You can do that on our Substack, jamesazar.substack.com. Have a great rest of your day, and most importantly, y'all, stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.